Hey there, I'm Jennifer Veller, productivity coach and your host of the Child Free Biz Cafe, the podcast where child free entrepreneurs redefine success on their terms. In each episode, I sit down with inspiring business owners and creators exploring their unique journeys, challenges, triumphs, and lessons learned. Passionate about the incredible fulfillment of the child free lifestyle, we'll chat over your favorite coffee or tea in our virtual cafe. From entrepreneurs to artists, we uncover secrets to success, share practical tips, and celebrate diverse paths in the child free life. So get ready for insightful conversations, empowering stories, and a community that embraces their child free life. This is the Child Free Biz Cafe, where fulfillment and happiness meets entrepreneurship. So today I'm talking with Annie McDonnell, an acupuncturist at Joy Alchemy Acupuncture, sound healing practitioner, and grief guide who's also child free. Annie teaches self-care practices to support people through physical and emotional effects of grief and cultivate emotional resilience. Hi, Annie. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for everyone listening.
So tell us about yourself.
Well, I actually started out as a children's book editor, and I still do that as well as being an acupuncturist. And in part of my own kind of child-free journey, I came to midlife not having met the right person and not having the resources to adopt on my own. So I was evaluating my life and what I wanted my legacy to be, what would be fulfilling in the second part of my life. So one of the things that had called to me over the years, and I finally, after a lot of deliberation, made the commitment to go back to grad school to become an acupuncturist. So that's one of the bonuses of the child-free lifestyle is that you do have the choice to take a big risk. I was working full time and going to school full time for
Oh,
three
wow.
years, and a few of my classmates did have young children, and I didn't know how they did it because they had partners also. But yeah, so I have been an acupuncturist and trying to figure out the entrepreneurial journey now as well. And over the past several years, I've been in my own season of grief, losing my parents and other family members. And part of my healing journey has been to learn how to use my resources to support myself through grief and then help others support themselves through grief. So that's been my current focus. So that's a short a short version of a long story.
Oh, I love that. Can you share more about your child-free journey?
Sure. I always expected or hoped that I would be a mom. I come from a big Irish Catholic family. I'm the youngest of five. And I'm lucky enough to be aunt to 12 nieces and nephews.
Oh, wow.
So I got the vicarious experience of spending a lot of time with young kids and watching them grow up, but also not having to change diapers or get all the sleepless nights involved in
Yeah.
that. So it's been a journey of discovering what my identity is, letting go of the idea of being a mother, and being that I work in children's books. Again, I also feel like I have impacted a lot of children
Yeah.
indirectly, but hopefully in an impactful way. So that's been very satisfying. And now, as an acupuncturist, I think I have the even more compassion and understanding for people going through fertility journeys, recovering from fertility journeys that may not have led to the outcome that they were hoping for.
Mm.
And just as a doing grief work, one of the things I like to bring attention to is there's so much more to grief than just someone dies and you go to a funeral
Yeah.
and that's it. We all carry our own layers of grief about loss of identity, maybe loss of a pregnancy, loss of hopes and dreams. There's so many different aspects to grief, and I like to help people acknowledge that their grief is worthy of care and attention.
Oh, absolutely. After my mom's passing too. So it's been an interesting journey for that. So that's another reason I'm excited to talk with you today. But how did you get into
Mhm.
natural medicine?
I actually had, speaking of parents, my parents were older when they had me. My mom was just about to turn 40 when she had me, and that was a little more unusual back in the day. And my mom's, both of her parents died at an early age. She was orphaned at a young age. So she had already outlived her own parents by the time she had me. So I think as a sensitive, emotional child, I think I picked up on her her own grief and just her some of her anxiety. I think about, would she live long enough to see me grow up? So I was
Yeah,
always interested from a very, very young age in longevity and ways to be healthy, and being like the pestering child, like, why don't you try this herb, or why don't you take this vitamin? Just with my parents were put up with it because they knew that it was with the intention that I love them and I wanted them to be around for
of
as long as
course.
possible. So even from a young age, I was reading up and following some functional medicine doctors, and I didn't think of it as a practical career choice. And then different things over the years kept drawing me back to it. I had my own experience with acupuncture that helped me a lot with my asthma, and it helped me emotionally as well, which I wasn't expecting. I was thinking that it was just physical, but it's
Yeah.
actually really good for emotions as well. And then I'm a big animal lover. So over the years, I have had the experience of wanting to keep my animals healthy. And then also, as I got older, learning ways to give them sort of hospice care, and the kinds of things that
Okay.
you can do at home to keep them around a little bit longer. So that gave me the hands-on experience with
Yeah.
some more medical techniques. That gave me the confidence to think like, oh, maybe I could do this.
Oh, absolutely. Sometimes you just need a little bit of trial and error to be like, will this even work? Is this something I like?
Mhm. Right.
Yeah. And grief, even before my mom passed, I realized with life, you just never know how long you're going to be here. So it's like, well, if I'm going to be here, I might as well do something I love and enjoy.
Hmm. Right.
And I don't want to be on my deathbed regretting things. And if I were to regret one thing, the only exception would be I would rather regret not having kids than having them and not being a good parent or being
Mm-hmm.
the person I needed to be for them. That would be my only exception to that. But yeah, grieving our old selves and then grieving motherhood in general for those who do want to be mothers, and that journey of finally accepting what is and then creating your new identity, new life around
Yeah,
that.
I think the more ways that we can acknowledge what's going on with ourselves rather than trying to judge it or suppress it or shame
Yeah,
it. That's why it feels weird to say, like, oh, I'm happy to talk about grief, but I actually am happy to
yeah,
talk about it because it's mystifying how it's the most universal experience, that everyone alive will face their own mortality at some point and will face the loss of someone or something or someplace that they value.
yeah,
And yet we have this veil over it. It's not really, is it okay to talk about? Is it okay to share the reality of it? And I think it is healthy if you have a relatively safe space to talk about it.
hmm,
It's healthy. It's not like you have to talk, you owe it to talk about your grief with anyone.
right,
But if you have someone you can trust, it is good to talk about it and to recognize that it is a process and a journey. It's not like I'm done with this.
right,
And I think like for child-free women too, you go through cycles of, because we're all cyclical beings anyway,
hmm,
but or cycles of nature where you come to a place of acceptance and then something else happens or you get to when the timing just happened where my mother died, and just about a month after that, I had my 50th birthday, which is a big milestone moment.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, I officially hit menopause. So it was like this triple whammy of like, I had thought I was okay with not that I wouldn't be a mom, but losing my own mom and then physically losing the capacity, losing my fertility finally, and then hitting that big milestone birthday where it's a blessing to reach that age, but then also like, oh, now it feels like the clock is running a little shorter. So I was a little taken aback at how it was all like the different aspects of grief were reverberating off each other. I was like, where does grief over my mom start and where does this grief begin? And like it's messy.
It's all
And
intertwined.
and so I feel like it's maybe helpful for people to know that you can get to a really good place in your child-free life and you can feel blessed and happy, and still something might happen down the road that will just poke at that place or that old wound, and it's okay. It's natural.
Oh
And
yeah.
the more tools you have to process your grief, I think it can help you to work through things.
Oh, absolutely. Which is a great segue into the next question. So, what are some of these tools and how can these tools help regulate your nervous system?
Mm-hmm.
Like breathing techniques, mindful movement, acupressure, simple sound healing practices to get you through these life challenges and create enough calm and peace and joy where you can, like, yeah, feel the feels. This is how I go through it. Feel the feels
Mm-hmm.
and then go back into solution mode, but
Mm-hmm.
still don't disregard those emotions. They still come up, still acknowledge it, still be in the motion, but don't linger there too long at a time, kind of thing.
Well, it's different for everyone. And even one of the things that can be challenging about grief is that tools that might have worked for you in the past in a really acute grief, they may not feel helpful anymore, or it might not feel helpful in that moment. It's not that they've stopped working altogether, but so I like to give people a wide toolkit of things that
Yeah.
maybe something is good for this moment, but tomorrow you'll today maybe it will help to talk to someone. Tomorrow you don't want to talk, you want to get out of your head and into your body. So it's good to know that grief is very, one of the things that isn't talked about it as much is grief is very physical.
Yeah.
It's not just thoughts and emotions because we're mind, body, spirit together. Everything affects everything else. So if you're not, especially if you're uncomfortable with your emotions and you're either like numbing out or freezing or suppressing, it's even more likely that your grief will manifest as physical symptoms like insomnia, stomach troubles. It's very common when you're grieving to either lose your appetite or to do emotional eating where you're craving sugar or some other comfort food, or maybe reaching for a crutch, a habit like alcohol, or numbing out in front of the TV. And not to say that any of these coping mechanisms are inherently bad. Sometimes it's okay to numb out if that's what will help you get through that moment or that day.
Yeah.
Um, but the more you numb yourself to uncomfortable emotions, the more you numb yourself to happier emotions. So I
Oh.
think the goal is to just be able to like ride the waves and know that you have the the skills to ride the waves that feel like they're going to knock you off your feet, how to you can get through those. And on the other side of that is a wave of joy or a wave of happy memory or hope for the future, or you just laughing about something silly. So I just like to encourage people that you don't have to feel everything all at once. And in fact, it's impossible to do that. So if you just give yourself space to feel an emotion or feel a sensation in your body for even like a minute or so and see what happens and see like, oh, I survived that. Or if you're really nervous about, because I know some people feel that they're going to drown in an emotion or they're going to get swept away. And that's where I'd encourage someone to get support, to talk to a grief counselor or a therapist or a trusted friend who maybe has experienced a loss and can understand. So you don't have to go through it alone. But there's so many. I think it can help people to understand that like they're not doing anything wrong and like, they're not grieving wrong. What part of what happens is your brain is wired to we're wired for like familiar patterns, because if we had to go through every day processing all this information and making every single decision, it was brand new, no one would function. So we have this whole map of the world that we carry around within us, and that map includes people we love, pets we love, places we love, our everyday routines. And what happens with grief is your brain actually has to physically rewire itself. They're like researchers where the past 20 years or so have started to do like scans of the brain, and you can see grief in a brain scan because there is a physical aspect to it where, and that's why it can go on for months and months and months, is because you're coming up to the holidays and you have to figure out, for my whole life I saw my mother on Christmas and now I can't. I have to process that and figure out, that it's not going to be the way my brain is expecting it to be.
Right.
So it is a process that I think takes longer than people want to acknowledge. And so that's why it's very common to get brain fog or memory loss. It can be hard, even a big reader, but I couldn't focus or concentrate to read for pleasure. I had to like do reading for work, and I could feel like the extra effort it took me to concentrate in that really acute stage of grieving. So I like to remind people that anything you can do to nurture your physical body will help the grieving process and will help to soften those really difficult emotions. So any kind of nurturing or nourishing or soothing or comforting thing you can do physically will help emotionally. And the nervous system is a lot of how we process the world. And what's very common in grief also is if you've been on a fertility journey, you've been in a fight or flight with the ups and downs of, is the fertility process going to be successful this month? Or what's going on with my relationship because of the impacted stress? Or so there are so many ways that way before a death or a loss, we've been in this heightened state of either freeze or fight or flight. And so our nervous system is just so amped up that anything we can do to just soothe that, create a sense of safety in our body. And that's one of the things I find too for women who may have struggled along the way. Some women obviously know that they've never wanted kids and that's their journey. But I think a fair percentage of child-free women maybe started out originally hoping or thinking that they might have children. They might have tried different things along the way. So what can happen pretty frequently is if you've had pregnancy loss or struggled with infertility in any way, you may have had a combative relationship with your own body where you feel resentful of your body, or you don't feel safe in your body, you don't feel comfortable in your body, or so many emotions of shame or anger or resentment, frustration. So I think mindfulness practices, and especially more physical
Mm.
Mindfulness practices that involve some physical movement or intentional movement or breathing can help to reharmonize things between your thoughts, your feelings, your physical body, and just get them all communicating with each other again.
Yeah.
And that makes it so much easier to move forward with more strength and hope and joy is when you're all like, you're not feeling pulled in multiple directions.
Can you share more about this, especially through mindful movement and Qigong?
Mhm. So I'm, as an acupuncturist, Chinese medicine isn't just acupuncture. It's also acupressure. So I can lead people in, if you don't see me physically, where I can put needles in you over a Zoom call, I can guide you to giving self massage, different acupressure points, or using essential oils or flower essences to stimulate the points and to get some possibly in Chinese medicine. The idea is that, and Western medicine is catching up too. There's a book called The Body Keeps Score that's pretty famous, with basically our body is watching out for us so that any emotion that is too much for our, any traumatic experience that is too much for us to process in that moment just gets stored somewhere.
Yeah.
And the idea is to not let it fester and stagnate there, because that will lead to
Yes.
achiness or pain or potentially other issues. So to just open up some space for that emotion to maybe bubble up at a safe pace, to just let it come to the surface, release. So breath work techniques are really good for that, where you can work into just opening up some space and then imagining tension or some uncomfortable feelings or some emotions to just float away on your exhale. And from a more Western medicine perspective, if you just make your exhale longer than your inhale, that stimulates the vagus nerve to go into a more rest and digest stage rather than fight or
Mhm.
flight. So it's working on, these techniques work on a lot of different levels, just like a basic physical, structural level, a nervous system level, but then also kind of a harmonic or emotional level. And I think people can try for themselves. It's free to breathe. It's free to do some sound techniques where music is very powerful as well. I love working with sound healing because I can use sound waves to help someone's brain waves shift naturally into a more meditative state.
Mm.
But people can also go onto YouTube and just try out different YouTube videos of singing bowls and see like what they're drawn to, what helps them relax or what helps them tune out if maybe their brain is in overdrive. Some
Yeah.
of this stuff can be really relaxing. And the same thing with singing is free, and singing is really powerful to move emotions. So I actually have a Spotify playlist that's all sad songs, and it's meant as partly to for people in grief who are maybe looking for some more grief specific songs to
Mm.
maybe identify, to feel less alone in what they're feeling, because you hear this song, you're like, oh my god, they captured this so beautifully, or
Yeah.
they made art out of this painful experience. But then it's also, if you feel like you've been holding back tears and that everything's just so bottled up, just try listening to a sad song or two and see if that just naturally makes you tear up a little bit and that feels like a good emotional release. And then in terms of movement, I'm trained as a grief movement guide. So the founder of Grief Yoga, Paul Denniston, integrates yoga movements, very gentle. You can be seated doing all of them. So it's just like gentle stretches, some breathing techniques, some sound techniques, and just the kind of intention and mindfulness of to come back home into your body and feel safe.
Yeah.
Let it be okay to just notice what's going on. And then once you notice, maybe do a movement or two that just maybe physically opens up your chest so it helps you to breathe a little bit deeper, because so much of grief is like restricting if you're
Yeah.
just like trying to like hold things down. And often sometimes in a 20-minute movement flow, if you've been holding things back, sometimes just the gentle, graceful physical movements will just like, your body is so intelligent, it will feel like, oh, okay, it's safe to maybe just let some of this anger out in aggressive movements,
Mhm.
or to just let some of the tears flow, or to and actually part of the grief movement is even laughter yoga, or even if you don't feel like laughing, if you fake laugh, see what happens, and
Hmm.
see like what emotions kind of bubble to the surface and are able to float away on some laughter. So it's the type of stuff that people can try intuitively for themselves, or they can work with someone like me, or they can poke around on YouTube and just go into it with like curiosity and
Yeah.
experimentation, because you have nothing to lose.
So how do you work with someone who would feel really awkward doing these practices just getting started, especially when they want to use them to help letting the trolls get to us online,
Mm-hmm.
or to finally embrace your full self, being accepting the child-free lifestyle and all the taboo and crap that comes with it from others, or just scared about your future, or grieving your parents, whether they're toxic or not, or cutting them out when, and then their death if they are cut out of your life.
Well, there are a lot of things that you can do potentially, and again, you wouldn't do them all at once.
Right.
It's part of working with the nervous system is going at a safe, sustainable pace. I'm all about the power of gentleness.
Mhm.
I think, especially in our culture, we have so much of a forcing mentality,
Yeah.
and how productive can I be? And there's so much healing in just slowing down, allowing yourself to rest, moving so much levels of expectation, and just inviting something
Mm.
to arise at its own time, in its own way. So depending on who I was working with, I do virtual sessions where there's no agenda, because depending on what is going on with someone that day, they might want to just spend the full session just talking to someone who
Yeah.
will listen without judgment, who can just maybe offer, if they want a different perspective or the way to reframe what's going on. Sometimes that can be helpful, or sometimes people feel talked out, or there are no words for what they're going through.
Mm.
So I might suggest even an herbal tea, that's a way in for some people, of like, here's one
Mhm.
thing that you can do, of like, take 5 to 10 minutes to make tea, and maybe put your phone down and just gauge your senses in like, what does the tea smell like? What does the
Love it.
tea look like as it's brewing? Watch the colors change. Watch the steam off the cup. Hold the tea and feel the warmth just flowing into your hands and throughout your whole body. Listen to the whistle of the tea kettle. Just like, again, that may sound silly, or it may be foreign to people, but again, just try it and see what happens, and see if after just a couple minutes of putting the phone down and just actually noticing and being attentive to what's going on, and how actually in this moment I actually am pretty safe.
Mm.
Whatever troll may be commenting, or whatever family member may have said something hurtful, a lot of these practices, and like, I don't think I mentioned Qigong specifically. Qigong is, again, another branch of Chinese medicine that's
Mhm.
meditative movements, involves some breathing exercises, some stretches. There's some overlap with yoga. It's a little similar to yoga. If you might have been in a public park in a big city, sometimes you see people who seem to be like moving in slow motion together.
Tai Chi.
That's either Tai Chi or Qigong. They're similar. And there are many different
Okay.
schools of Qigong. Some of them are based on animal movements. And so, again, you're like tapping into different types of different ways of being by moving in these different ways. But one of the things I find that's very helpful about all of these practices, we're slowing down, and either singing or humming is something that I like to help people do, because that's like your own sound vibration that
Mm-hmm.
is working on your nervous system in a very helpful way. Or breathing, or taking 10 minutes to do body scan meditation. So much of what these practices do is they help you come back into your center
Mm-hmm.
and reconnect to your intuition, your inner wisdom, your inner peace, your own unique inner frequency. And that's so powerful. And that's so reassuring too.
Mm-hmm.
And I find it's easier to tune out the noise of the world and other people's opinions if you're deeply connected to, like, I know who I am.
Yes.
And I feel and our energy gets so scattered with just like modern life. We're all multitasking, we're all absorbing more information than we're evolutionarily designed to handle. So the more you can connect with what's going inside, what's going on inside your body, what messages your body might be whispering to you to help you prevent something more dire down the road. Even something as simple as, like, I think it's so easy to, when you're like in a productive work mode, to forget to drink enough water,
Yes.
to forget to get up to pee, or just like, so even just like basic things of taking care of yourself in the gentlest ways build this relationship of safety with yourself. And then you're able to harness so much power and resilience because you know who you are,
Mm-hmm.
you're connected to your resources, you're not freezing off uncomfortable parts of yourself. So it's an ongoing, it's like
It's a
peeling back
process.
the onion. It's like peeling back an onion, getting to know yourself and who you are, but it's a really rewarding journey.
Oh, absolutely. It's been a long process in the works still for me as well. So why should we incorporate natural medicine as an option into our regular medical plan sooner?
Well, I think it's the old saying, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. There are so many ways. There's in Chinese medicine, there's like a whole school of healthy aging. And again, like if you do, and Western scientists are doing official studies or whatever to
Mm-hmm.
validate stuff that has been around for thousands of years. But if you do practices like Qigong and Tai Chi regularly, it helps your balance. So you're actually less likely to fall as you get older. And again, it doesn't take any like, physical strength or fitness.
Mm-hmm.
So this stuff is very, very simple, gentle movements. Or same thing with yoga too. You don't have to go to the gym for an hour a day, and it is good to lift weights, but just simple stretches will help your core balance, your resilience. There's qigong exercises that again will help you sleep better at night. If you have trouble slowing down your thoughts, and it's a nice progression to just slow yourself down gradually and calm your nervous system down so that when you get into bed, your thoughts aren't still racing. So these things, they're free, and they're stuff that human beings have known about for thousands of years, and we've just
Mm-hmm.
gotten, or they've been devalued because it's like grandmother's wisdom, or it just sounds too simple.
Yeah.
But this stuff has real power. And I like to tell people, just start where you are. So, start with 5 or 10 minutes a day and do that for however long you want to. And then maybe it'll start feeling so good that you'll want to do it for 15 minutes a day, or you to try out different techniques. Meditation doesn't have to mean sitting on an uncomfortable cushion and trying to silence your thoughts. That's actually not. There's singing meditations. There's listening to singing bowls and tuning forks, or there's going out in nature and just using your senses to slow down. And so I think we have like limiting beliefs about, oh, it won't do any good unless I have like a perfect morning routine. Just start with something. Start and see where it takes you. It might take you somewhere very unexpected. And so much of this stuff is pretty simple and intuitive, and the more you tune into your intuition, the stronger your intuition will get, and the more you'll start to trust yourself and like what's right for me. The experts may tell me this, but my gut instinct is telling me this. And I think what most people, Western medicine is great in acute situations. If you're in a car accident,
Oh, yeah.
if you need surgery, thank goodness for antibiotics and
Okay.
modern technology. But it's not so good for chronic diseases and the diseases of the modern Western lifestyle and the modern Western diet. So maybe it would be good to get back to some old fashioned wisdom of just,
Yeah.
it really does matter to get enough sleep, to put good,
Yes.
nourishing foods in your body, to get sunlight each day, to move each day, and then to try out different ways to move, different ways to meditate, different ways to play with creativity, potentially through sound or journaling. Or there's so many options that are available to people.
Do you think because I didn't realize how easily accessible this really was? So for me personally, and I think a lot of other people that I've noticed too, is that they tend to go natural as a last resort and not
Mm-hmm.
sooner. And for me, it was because they don't take insurance, or
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have insurance at all, but I couldn't just pay someone.
Mm-hmm.
So, how you think that has been a barrier too, just because we don't know, of course, and then how insurance can be a block sometimes.
It definitely is. Our system is very is very flawed. I don't know the magic solution because it's so complicated. But I think one of the good things, and it's actually I recently went to a functional medicine practitioner who was not in network, and I had saved up because I was like, I want to get the blood work that is interpreted in a way that's actually meaningful
Yeah.
rather than like, oh, it's normal. No, your definition of normal
Yes.
is so limited that so for me it was I understand the frustration where I wish it were more readily available and
Hmm.
accessible. And I think there is still, as an acupuncturist too, there's so many studies that validate acupuncture, and yet there are still so many people in the Western medicine paradigm who just dismiss it out of hand without any knowledge of how it works or what's going on in the body. It's just like a lot of different things where medical doctors go through medical school primarily learning about pharmaceuticals, learning no nutrition, learning nothing about herbs. So there's a lot of just unawareness and then also some arrogance too.
Yeah.
But in terms of accessibility, I would encourage people to, with the internet, there's so many resources that are free or low cost, and even more a functional medicine doctor who might be very expensive one to one. A lot of them now are offering group programs or digital courses where you can dip your toe in the water with lower financial commitment. And I would encourage people to, well, you don't have to do one or the other. Natural medicine they integrate
Right.
very
Yes.
nicely together. The caution I would have is just if you're taking herbs or supplements, talk to someone knowledgeable, either an herbal medicine practitioner or a pharmacist or a functional medicine doctor who might be able to alert you to potential interactions.
Yeah.
I like to just start people on herbs that are more food grade rather than, because some herbal medicine, it is strong. A lot of pharmaceuticals are actually derived from herbal medicine, which again, Western medicine will take credit for some new drug that's actually just like, that's turmeric. That's talk to Ayurveda about the benefits of curcumin. That's turmeric that they've been using for thousands of years. So, and also it's a different mindset too, where the Western mindset is to isolate one component of turmeric and give you a pill at an unnaturally high dose, which has pluses and minuses to it. So I encourage people to, again, you can start small, you can start soft, you can start gentle, and just try one herbal tea. Tulsi is a really good entryway because it's called an adaptogen, which means it just helps your body adapt to stress, like bring things into balance, and it's very safe. I think the main caution, I think if you're on a blood thinning medication, you might want to be careful with it. But aside from that, just like a culinary herb, and it tastes pretty good, and you can find it in tea blends blended with other. There's like a chai flavored one and a rose flavored one, and so maybe just start with something small. And also with natural medicine, there's not like instant gratification that you sometimes get with Western medicine. I think
It's
like
term,
difference
yeah.
is Western medicine, you might get like quick dramatic results, which feels like big progress. But then what happens is you keep using it, and over time the side effects start to creep in.
Mm,
And then they'll prescribe you another drug to deal with
yep.
the side effect of the first drug, and then it just becomes this like endless cycle where you're just getting more and more dysfunction popping up because you're making your liver and kidneys and detoxifying organs work so hard to deal with these strong chemicals. It's kind of the opposite with a lot of natural medicine where it's so slow and gentle, building you up over time.
Mm.
So it might take a few weeks to notice a difference. So you have to have some faith or just give it time. Or if you can do a little research online from trusted sources, again, there are a lot of people on Instagram and YouTube, and look for someone with some credentials, but who a lot of people put out great content of some short informational videos. And if you have like an immediate reaction where it seems like your digestive system doesn't agree with something, maybe stop it right then and there. But otherwise, if you try a supplement or an herb and nothing happens for a week or two, maybe just try and give it a little more
Yeah.
time before you give up.
And just as a disclaimer, that even though you're certified, that this is content, of course, and it's for educational
Mm-hmm.
purposes. As always, consult a professional near you or work
Yeah,
with you one on
yeah,
one directly. That
yeah,
way to make sure
absolutely.
the right things work for you. Don't just go
Right,
out willy-nilly, just going crazy.
right,
So,
absolutely. Everyone is different. The caveat to that is just that if you have a Western medicine doctor who knows nothing about herbs or supplements
mm,
and just shuts you down, you can find a second opinion. You don't have to take that as God's judgment that none of this stuff works, because there's
right.
actually a lot of history and research out there. But every person is different, and if you're on, if you already have a medical condition, it will also affect interactions. And so it's always best to work with someone, but you can also start with what you feel comfortable with. Oh, this is a healthy food. Let me see if it's healthy for me,
Hmm.
because it might not be healthy for you. If broccoli is good for 80% of people, there might be 20% of people who broccoli is not what they need at that time or not. So it is a journey. but I would say I would encourage people to get curious
Yeah.
and and look for, because it is possible to feel better.
So what is one key takeaway from all of this, or is that your takeaway?
Well, I guess I would encourage people to, as think as you started to feel into your emotions, feel into what's going on in your body and your nervous system. If you can remove judgment of that, that we're all having this human experience. We all have ups and downs.
Hmm.
We all have coping mechanisms that served us well to get through difficult experiences, but maybe don't serve us as well anymore. We're all trying to find our way. So I would try and remove as much judgment as possible. And I know it's like child free experience. There can feel like a weight of judgment a lot of times. I would say, come home to your own body, come home to your own heart, and try different practices, physical, emotional, spiritual, to come home to yourself and connect to your inner wisdom and see what a difference that makes in how you feel and how you go through life.
So where can we find you online?
My website is joyalchemyhealing.com, and on Instagram I'm at acupuncture Annie. So I invite anyone to come check out my work and reach out if you'd like more information or support.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Annie. So
Thank you.
that's a wrap for today. Huge thanks for Annie for being here. If you've enjoyed this episode, hit that subscribe, share your thoughts in the comments, and send this to a child-free friend. You can connect with me on social media as Productively Child Free. And always remember, you're not alone. Until next time, stay amazing and live life your way.